What's up, Trainee Axe? Welcome to this week's Triathlon Newsday Tuesday. In this week's edition of Triathlon Newsday, a man that everyone loves to hate, Lance Armstrong, announces that he will be doing something with ESPN, and it sounds great. A little more cheddar is on the line for some pro triathletes, and a couple of the most inspiring mountain bikers take on Cape Epic, and Pete's tail photobombs the corner. What's up, Trainee Axe? Welcome to this week's Triathlon Newsday Tuesday, where almost every single Tuesday we talk about goings-on all around the triathlon world. Make sure you stick around to the end, where we share everyone's favorite part of Triathlon Newsday. That is a story from the Trainiac community, and this is a very unique one we've got this week. As always, full links to everything I talk about will be in the description below. Now, let's start off with the man that everyone loves to hate, Lance Armstrong. He said in an interview last week that he will be taking part in one of ESPN's 30 for 30 documentaries. Now, this is coming after he has settled the court case with the US government to pay back $5 million, and 6 years after the 2013 interview that he did with Oprah, where he came clean about the allegations of doping. He's also been a fair bit more open on two podcasts that he runs over the last couple of years, so I hope that with everything settled, with 6 years in between everything blowing up, and now that this 30 for 30 documentary will be a fair bit more open than that Oprah chat where, as he says himself, he wasn't ready to talk about it, but he was forced to. Should be interesting. Ironman's biggest competitor, the Challenge family of races, announced that they would be expanding their Pro World Ranking annual bonus that they tally up over the course of the year, and then at the end of the year, the top 5 men and the top 5 female pros that have accumulated points throughout the course of the year get a share of $150,000. And this is very nice. This is more money coming back to pros, and they've expanded this by allowing pros to accumulate points at another 3 races, being Challenge Hong Kong, Challenge Cancun, and Challenge Gunsan Samangyam. I'm gonna make you spell that phonetically right here. Wasn't a lot of racing over the course of the weekend, but SuperLeague Singapore happened, which at one point I was supposed to go to. Things kind of fell through, one thing or another, it led to this and that, and I was training here and not in Singapore, but it looked like a blast. Vincent and Katie Zaferes won the overall titles that happened over the course of 3 days of racing. Shout out to my buddy Tyler Mislawchuk, local boy here, who placed second in behind Johnny Brownlee in day 2 of racing. And there was a ton of interesting racing. Katie Zaferes had a sprint finish that I still don't know who won. The course was tight and twisty and turny, and Vincent ended up having a puncture. Johnny Brownlee ended up rolling his ankle when he was trying to dive into the water. And it was pure carnage. You've got to see the pictures of this, and I think this is one of the coolest things going on in the sport of triathlon that isn't long distance racing. It's something for the more badass amongst us that want to go short but intense and really challenge us. So, excellent event. In the Triathlon Taren Podcast, over the last few days, we have interviewed the first 3-time guest on the podcast is the voice of Ironman, Mike Riley, who in the middle of March will be coming out with his book talking about stories from Ironman. And just yesterday, we chatted with James Mitchell, photographer to the stars, Lucy Charles, photographer, and basically I think one of the best photographers in triathlon, about how you become a photographer in the sport. Really interesting chat. I like James a lot. Now finally, as far as news goes, 2 British military veterans will be tackling the Cape Epic multi-day mountain bike stage race that Ben Hoffman and Sebastian Kienle did last year to raise money for the Ironman Foundation. Now why this is really interesting is because Jaco van Gas has only one arm. His partner, Stu Crossford, has a prosthetic leg, and they're going to be raising money for the Wiggly Support Fund. And this is like one of the most badass races out there. If you listen to our podcast with Ben Hoffman, you will hear how intense it was for even some of the fittest in the sport. And here are people, a couple of veterans that are doing this intense, crazy race, being physically challenged athletes, but wanting to raise awareness of what you can accomplish if you challenge yourself. So good on you two. Now, speaking of veterans, the Trainiac Story for this week comes from Scott Whalen, who says, I spent 6 years in the United States Marine Corps and have been involved in many conflicts, including first the Gulf War, Somalia, and Liberia. After the Marines, I joined the Boston Fire Department working on Ladder Company 14. I was at Ground Zero in New York doing their search and rescue after 9/11, and I helped out with the FDNY's honor guards for the 343 members that were killed. I started to study for promotional tests and in the process gained around 55 pounds. Finally, in 2015, I said enough was enough and I started running again. I ran several marathons, including Boston and the Marine Corps Marathon. My wife and I started a charity called Florian's Causes to support families of fallen firefighters and disabled vets. This past July, in 2018, I decided to race Ironman Cozumel in honor of those disabled vets. And seeing disabled veterans like Cedric King, a man missing 2 legs, competing in Ironman events was enough motivation for me. At the age of 49, I completed my first Ironman in 11 hours, 20 minutes, and raised money to help more disabled vets compete in triathlons. This summer, I plan to race Challenge Roth for families and fallen firefighters, and I will always be pushing to compete not only for me, but for those that can't. I'm a Trainiac at heart, and I look forward to watching some of your YouTube videos and reading workout tips here tomorrow at work during my downtime. Sincerely, Scott Whalen. Well, Scott, I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. Thanks for following along, and I look forward to meeting you at Challenge Roth. 11:20? I have no idea what my goal time is going to be, so we'll see if we see each other on the race course. Anyway, that is Triathlon Newsday Tuesday. If you aren't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button below. And if you want your story shared here on Triathlon Newsday, make sure to email me at Taren@triathlontaren.com. You don't have to be saving lives or raising money, just share your story. They're all different kinds of stories and everyone helps motivate each other. So send them in. Later, Trainiacs.